The golden mask shines, but beneath it was a boy's fragile body, shattered in ways no one at court dared to speak of. The child pharaoh. Imagine the streets of Thebes around 1330 before the Common Era. The boy who sat on the throne of Egypt was no towering Ramses, no hardened warrior. Tutankhamun came to power at just 9 years old, a child, thrust into the most powerful monarchy on earth. His reign glittered with ritual processions, colossal statues, and the illusion of stability. But behind the temples, his body already bore the marks of fragility. Tutankhamun is believed to have suffered from a congenital clubfoot, a deformity that forced him to rely on walking sticks. Archaeologists have found more than 130 of them in his tomb. To his subjects, they were symbols of authority. To him, they may have been survival. Even at the height of his reign, he likely limped through ceremonies. And yet, Egyptian art still showed him smiting enemies, riding chariots, and shooting arrows, images that disguised his pain. But why was such a carefully staged image necessary? The legacy of Amarna. Only a few years before his birth, Egypt had been plunged into chaos by his father, Akhenaten, the so-called heretic king. He dismantled the temples of Amun, installed a radical new solar cult, and left Egypt vulnerable to foreign threats. Tutankhamun's rule was meant to heal that wound, to restore order by returning to the old gods. But while the priests celebrated his restoration, the boy himself carried the weight of his father's heresy in his own body. DNA analysis of his mummified remains suggests that his parents were siblings, a union meant to preserve royal blood. The result may have been a body plagued by weakness, a cleft palate, scoliosis, and the club foot. The empire demanded strength. His bones told a different story. Egyptian propaganda could mask political crisis. It could not mask brittle bones. The burden of rule. Tutankhamun reigned in fragile times. To the north, the Hittites expanded across Anatolia. In Canaan, Egyptian garrisons were stretched thin. Letters discovered in the royal archives, known as the Amarna letters, revealed desperate appeals for troops and gold. Most belong to the time of Akhenaten, but they hint at the fragile state that Tutankhamun inherited. The child king himself, however, was in no condition to lead armies. Instead, his advisors, the seasoned vizier, and General Horemheb steered Egypt's policies. They were the true power behind the boy on the throne, but even they could not protect Tutankhamun from the enemy that lingered in his palace, his failing body. Artifacts in his tomb whisper the story of decline. Orthopedic canes, specially padded sandals, medical ointments, tools not of a warrior, but of a patient. Still, how does a boy king, meant to heal Egypt, end in a death so disturbing that even his embalming went wrong? A body in fragments. When Howard Carter uncovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, he expected the perfect mummy of Egypt's golden child. Instead, he found shock. The pharaoh's body was charred, fragmented, and fused to the coffin. Carter believed ancient resins caused the damage. Later studies suggested something far darker. In 2013, forensic scans revealed evidence that Tutankhamun's body may have been burned after burial. Chemical analysis showed embalming oils, combined with oxygen, could have triggered a chemical reaction inside the coffin. His flesh may quite literally have been scorched in the grave. But this horror came only after death. To know what killed him, we must return to the palace, in his final years, when his health was already unraveling. The Palace of Pain. Ancient Egypt's medical texts, like the Ebers Papyrus, describe remedies for fevers, ulcers, and infections, but they offered little for genetic disease. Tutankhamun's skeletal remains show repeated fractures, especially in the left leg, likely worsened by his club foot. Some scholars believe he may have suffered a catastrophic break from a fall or an accident. Imagine the boy king, unable to stand without support, yet paraded as divine. His courtiers knew he could hardly walk. Modern studies also detected malaria parasites in his remains, suggesting recurring fevers. A fractured leg, combined with infection and immune weakness, could have been fatal. Yet the damage to his corpse suggests more than illness. Something in those final days still resists explanation. A tomb that speaks. Inside his burial chamber, the walls were painted in haste. Unlike the elaborate artistry of Ramses or Seti, Tutankhamun's murals were rushed, pigments smeared, colors fading. Some scholars suggest he died suddenly, leaving successors scrambling to prepare a burial not originally intended for him. His tomb is unusually small for a pharaoh, almost like that of a noble. Was his death anticipated, or an accident that shocked the court? The mismatched artifacts, items first inscribed for others, later altered with Tutankhamun's name, suggest panic. Egypt's most sacred ritual, the burial of its god-king, was conducted with visible improvisation. But why the rush? What forced Egypt's embalmers to fail so catastrophically that his body ended up burned? The last campaign that never was. In his final years, Tutankhamun's court may have prepared for war. Chariot parts and weapons in his tomb suggest Egypt envisioned a campaign to the north. Reliefs depict the young pharaoh in battle, bow drawn, trampling enemies beneath his horses. Yet forensic studies reveal the contradiction. Tutankhamun's spine was curved, his foot deformed, his body so frail that standing in a chariot may have been impossible. If he attempted to ride into war, the risk was enormous. The leg fracture in his remains may have come from such a moment. A crash, a fall, or perhaps a training accident. This injury, in an age before antibiotics, was a death sentence. But the story begins there. It does not end there. The collapse. The pharaoh likely suffered searing pain. A compound fracture opens the body to infection. Fever follows, delirium, collapse. Malaria parasites found in his remains suggest he was already weakened, perhaps sweating through bouts of sickness when the leg gave way. Ancient medicine could splint bones, apply honey to wounds, even cauterize with copper tools. But nothing could stop sepsis spreading through the body of a boy already burdened by disease. In the palace, priests recited protective spells. But the god-king himself may have been writhing in fever, his body unable to fight. And then, silence. Tutankhamun was dead before his 20th year, but the horror was not over. It had only begun. A failed embalming. Tutankhamun's burial was meant to transform him into Osiris, lord of the afterlife. Instead, his mummification became a grotesque failure. CT scans reveal his chest cavity missing its sternum and ribs. His heart, normally preserved with sacred care, was gone. No other pharaoh's body shows this. Evidence suggests a botched embalming. Perhaps the body, already decomposing, was rushed. Oils poured in haste soaked the remains. Combined with the heat of a sealed tomb, the flammable resins may have ignited. The boy king's body was partially burned within his coffin. Flesh blackened, bones shattered, the corpse fused to gold. When Carter opened the tomb 3,000 years later, what should have been a preserved god was a scorched ruin. This was not just death, it was desecration. The politics of a dead king. Why was the burial rushed? The answer may lie with those who benefited. Tutankhamun left no heir. Within days, his vizier I married his widow, Ankhesenamun, and took the throne. Soon after, General Horemheb rose to power, erasing Tutankhamun's memory from monuments and king lists. The boy king who restored the gods was nearly erased from history. Only the chance survival of his tomb, hidden beneath later construction, preserved his name. But his body tells the story his successors tried to silence. A crippled child made divine, a king broken by accident and infection, a corpse burned by mistake, an afterlife marred before it began. The horrible death of Tutankhamun. The golden mask remains flawless, staring eternally with serene perfection. Yet beneath it, the truth is unbearable. A young man, bones shattered, blood poisoned, a corpse consumed by fire in the very tomb meant to immortalize him. The boy who ruled the mightiest kingdom of the ancient world died not as a god, but as a broken body, scorched in darkness. And so the most famous face of Egypt hides not glory, but the grotesque ruin of a life and death unworthy of a pharaoh.